The smell of gunpowder ripped the air out of my lungs when the truck jolted, and the ammunition crates almost crushed me. I clung to the wood, feeling the cold metal vibrate. That's when, under distant fire, I saw Wojtek. I was just another Polish soldier in exile, desert dust glued to my skin and homesickness weighing on my chest. The war had stolen my country. All that was left was to survive with whatever remained, courage and luck. We found the cub on a dirt road, near a village lost to the world. The woman carrying him had hollow eyes, like she'd already seen the end. She placed that small, warm, trembling body into my arms. I held the bear and felt tiny paws snag at my coat. His muzzle smelled of milk and dust. In that instant, something inside me lit up, a silent promise that not everything would be ruin. I asked my comrades to let me keep him. The commander looked at me like I was insane, but I wasn't asking for a mascot. I was asking for a reason to keep breathing. We named him Wojtek, and he learned my scent before he learned the world. In Cap, the men laughed when he tripped over his own paws. I laughed too, but inside I cried with relief. Nights were long and cold, even in the Middle East. I lay on the hard ground, and Wojtek curled against me like a living blanket. The sound of his heartbeat became my clock. He grew fast, as if war were fertilizer. His fur darkened, thick, and his eyes took on a strange, almost human intelligence. When I stared at him, it felt like he stared back, judging my fear. The officers hated the idea of a bear among soldiers. Discipline, they said, as if discipline could stop death. But Wojtek wasn't just an animal. He was presence, and presence in war is a kind of weapon. I trained him by instinct, not by any manual. A hand gesture, a whistle, and he came. A tap to my chest, and he sat.
When I said calm, he breathed deep, like he understood my urgency. The men fed him scraps, fruit, bread, whatever they had. Wojtek learned to open bottles with his paws, and I saw the shock in the eyes of British soldiers. A bear clinking beers looked like a ridiculous joke. But nothing was a joke when the sirens howled. In alerts, Wojtek grew restless before anyone else, sniffing the air as if the wind carried secrets. I learned to trust that nose more than maps and radios. When they ordered us to board ship, the problem became concrete. Animals don't travel with troops. My stomach dropped. Without Wojtek, I lost my center. And without a center, a man breaks too easily. I went to the commander and spoke without shaking, even though I was shaking inside. I said Wojtek was part of the platoon, that he calmed men who'd already seen hell. The commander sighed, staring at my dirty hands. Then came the most insane solution: register Wojtek as a soldier.
I heard it and laughed, short, disbelieving. But the paperwork was filled out like destiny. Name, unit, even a rank, just to bend the rules. When I saw his file, a strange dizziness hit me. Wojtek was no longer the bear. He was officially one of us. I rested a hand on his head and whispered like it was a ceremony. "Now you're real, brother." On the ship, the sea was an aggressive blue, and the wind cut like a blade. Wojtek paced the deck with the calm of a giant, and sailors stepped back, half laughing, half praying. I kept my hand close to him. At night, when the waves struck like hammers, I dreamed of bombings. I woke drenched in sweat, and Wojtek was there, heavy against me, warm, solid. He didn't speak, but his silence was a shield. Italy welcomed us with hard mountains and an ash-gray sky. The air smelled of wet stone and smoke. I felt the omen on my back. That land would charge us dearly, and we would pay in blood. Soon the order came: Casino. The name sounded too small for the size of the nightmare. The terrain was a maze of rock and ruins. I saw men praying without faith, only out of habit. before climbing. Enemy fire fell like iron rain. With every blast, the earth spat dust and shrapnel. I carried ammunition with trembling hands and still pushed forward. That's when Wojtek appeared in the middle of the chaos. He shouldn't have been there, but he was. I shouted for him to go back, but my voice vanished under gunfire. Wojtek ignored the chaos with absurd determination, as if war were just another obstacle between him and me. I saw a crate of shells slip, and a soldier fall trying to stop it. Without thinking, Wojtek moved in. His massive paws wrapped the load like it was nothing. The bear rose up, and I felt the world pause. Wojtek began carrying ammunition on his own. He walked on two legs, chest open, like a towering man made of fur and courage. The soldiers around him froze, wide-eyed.
My heart hammered with victory. He went and returned, a steady route between the truck and the front line. Each trip was a challenge to logic, and logic lost that day. I saw enemies hesitate, maybe in fear, maybe in pure confusion. It wasn't only strength, it was symbol. When I watched Wojtek advance, I remembered the war had no right to reduce us to shadows. If a bear could defy bombs, then I, human, couldn't hide from fear. There was a moment when an explosion tore a hole in the ground and I nearly fell into it. I felt hands yank me back. When I looked up, Wojtek stood beside me, panting, eyes locked on me like a bodyguard. I touched his muzzle, caked in dust, and felt brutal warmth in my palm. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Cassino felt like a stone monster, but we had a monster on our side, and he was ours. After the battle, men spoke of Wojtek like they spoke of a saint.
I heard exaggerated stories, and still I knew the truth was already unbelievable. The sight of him hauling shells would become a war brand. The unit adopted an emblem, a bear holding a shell. When I saw that drawing, pride rose in me like fire. It was proof our pain had forged something rare, a living legend, and I'd met that legend as a cub. Wojtek became a spectacle, of course. Reporters, officers, soldiers from other units came to look. Some laughed, others recoiled. I kept my body between him and any threat, not because I feared him, but because I feared the world. He loved wrestling with the men, shoving, toppling, never truly hurting anyone. But I saw the care in his movements, like he understood his own power. A giant learning gentleness, rarer than gold. When the war began to change its tone, I felt the emptiness creeping closer. Fighting kept us together. Peace can separate you.
I looked at Wojtek and realized the civilian world had no easy place for a soldier bear. Orders came for demobilization, and pain stabbed me like a blade, as if they were ripping out an organ. Where would he go? A bear with military papers, with history, with a troop's soul. I saw the future as a cage that would squeal. We went to Scotland, and the air was different, cold, wet, smelling of grass and rain. Wojtek walked between tents like he already knew those hills. I stared at the horizon and tried to believe the worst was over. But the worst for me was the farewell. When they decided Wojtek would go to a zoo, rage and helplessness flooded me. War taught me to swallow orders, but how do you swallow the order to abandon a brother? I went to see him behind the enclosure, and the bars gleamed like an insult. Wojtek approached and stood tall, huge, pressing his paws against the metal. I pressed my forehead to the bars. Between us, iron and silence.
I called his name, and he let out a low, deep sound, like a muffled thunderclap. In his eyes, I saw an ancient recognition. It wasn't an animal looking at a man, it was a soldier looking at another, without understanding the end. With time, I returned whenever I could. I called Wojtek, and he came, heavy, with a calm sadness. Some said he remembered Polish. I don't know. I only know he remembered me. I watched him grow old, and every white hair was a memory that hurt. The world moved on, forgetting old wars. But I didn't forget, because the living proof that courage exists, even beyond human, was breathing there. And when he finally was gone, I felt as if part of my past was buried with him. Still, I wasn't empty, because Wojtek taught me a truth no general writes. Loyalty is what saves the mind. Even now, when I close my eyes, I still see Casino burning, and in the middle of the smoke, a bear walking upright.
I taste dust, feel cold metal, and I know it. I lived a legend.